Everybody about ready to go?
We're live.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the study session of the University City Council to order on September 23rd at 5:30 p.m. Before you, you have the regular agenda for the public meeting at 6:30. Are there any changes to the regular agenda at this time? Hearing none. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this item asks that you receive a update regarding the clean water project. We've got several representatives here from MSD, and I would ask Mr. Girdler to come forward and introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Rose, Mayor, City Council. Tonight, MSD is going to talk about the Project Clear Tunnel. And and to start off, we're going to have Brad take it over. I don't have much else.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If as everyone comes to the mic, you can at least give us your name and then the address of MSD. We'd appreciate it.
Sure. My name is Brad Nevoy. I'm with the Metropolitan Sewer District. Our address is 2350 Market Street in St. Louis. We appreciate you having us here tonight. We wanted to run through and give you an update on our project. Hopefully, if my slides advance. It should work. I promise we tested it before we got going.
We always believe it's the ghost of E.G. Lewis or something like that, who built this building, by the way. If not, we have the presentation in front of us as well in hard copy.
So while we're waiting on that, I'll read the extremely long project title here. It's the Upper River to Pear and River to Pear tributaries combined sewer storage tunnel. And that kind of goes along with what we're going to talk about tonight. Originally, as part of the original planning for the consent decree, this was two separate tunnels.
Yeah, I can.
Switch to your. All right, thank you. So the presentation we're going to talk about tonight We actually received a modification to our consent decree, our agreement with the EPA, and we've combined those two tunnels into one. So you're going to see what that looks like tonight. Advance, please. There we go. All right, the purpose of the meeting is to outline the goals for the project, define what a combined sewer overflow is. University City is somewhat unique in this area. You have two different types of sanitary sewers in University City. You have sanitary only, where there's sanitary and a separate storm sewer on the west side of town. And on the east side of town, you have what are combined sewers, where the sanitary flow and the storm flow all go into one pipe. So we're going to talk in detail about those. We're going to provide an overview of the solution that we've come up with, and then we're going to hit on the components of that solution that will be built in University City specifically. We're mainly here tonight. We want to get your feedback on what we call the retrieval shaft. We're going to build a large tunnel, and at the end of that tunnel, we have to have a shaft to take the machine out of the ground. So we're going to talk about that extensively tonight as well. And then we're going to talk about next steps and how we're going to communicate with you as we go along. Next slide, please. So we have a few people here tonight. As you know, I think we outnumber you guys tonight. So myself, I'm Brad Nevoy. We also have Brett Berthold here. He's our executive director. And Jeff Kokel, who is from our design team from Jacobs Engineering. Next slide, please. The other folks that are here are going to help. We assume you may have some questions later, and they're going to give me the answers. So MSD, we provide sanitary and stormwater services from all of St. Louis City and most of St. Louis County. The green area you see to the right there on the map along the Mississippi River and mostly the city of St. Louis, that's a combined sewer area that I was talking about. And it really has to do with the way the sewers were developed in the era of the houses that were built. Next slide, please. So previous engagement, as I said, this is one of the last two big projects, mega projects that we have to build associated with our consent decree. This dates all the way back to 2007, 2009, when the long-term control plan was put together. The long-term control plan involved the communities and helped them decide on what the solution should be going forward. So that all goes all the way back 2007, 2009. There was a large outreach, meetings all over the area, and they got input on balancing spend with impacts to the environment. And so that's how we came up with the consent decree and the combined sewer components of the consent decree. This project is scheduled to be completed by 2039. So some of the faces in this room may change by 2039, obviously, but we want to get the plan out there by the end of the year and lay that out for everyone so they know where we're headed. Next slide, please. So this is where I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. Jeff's going to give you some details on the project goals. And then at the end, we presented to the city manager about 6 weeks ago, I think. We captured a lot of questions that they had that day, and we've got answers to those questions, and we're sure you're going to have some more. So if you don't mind, if you can keep your questions till the end, I would imagine a lot of the questions that the city manager had are going to be the similar questions you have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. So again, I'm Jeff Kokel. Work for Jacobs Engineering. We're supporting MSD from the design perspective of this program and the tunnel itself. So my intent tonight is to just kind of go over the project as a whole. So it's like the way I break that down in my mind all the time is kind of like, what's the problem? What's our solution? And then how does it impact your community? That's generally going to be my focus over the next 5-10 minutes or something like that. But turn it back over to Brad for some more details. So project goals, you guys can see. The two that we really want to stress upon is improve water quality of local rivers and streams by reducing wastewater inflows. So as Brad talked, we're in a combined sewer area, and I'll get into that, but that's where the water starts mixing, the wastewater and the stormwater turns into kind of a diluted gray water. But we're wanting to improve upon that, reduce the amount of that gray water that goes into the streams. The second project goal there is to meet objectives and requirements of the Clean Water Act. And we do want to stress it's not a flood control project. That's not really the definition of this particular project that we're going to talk about tonight. So next slide, please. So what is a combined sewer overflow? Again, what is the problem? As Brad said, it's not really a problem. It's just the way that the city was, developed, the evolution of the city, starting here, heading east into the city of St. Louis. But a combined sewer system collects both rainwater and wastewater into one pipe. During dry periods, no issues. That just heads off to the wastewater treatment plant for treatment. When you get these heavy rainstorms, the amount of stormwater runoff can overtax the system in a sense. And so that's where you get too much flow going into the pipe, and then it discharges out into Upper River to Pear right now. So that is how we define a combined sewer overflow event, is when there's too much stormwater that mixes with the wastewater and it discharges out into a permitted CSO location or diversion structure. Next slide. Thank you. The consent decree requires MSD to remove the SSO. So those are sanitary sewer overflows. University City does not have any of those. And also implement CSO control measures or improvements. University City does have 32 CSOs, which we're improving with this program. The picture there shows what the CSO at Amherst looks like. So that's Amherst and north-south, kind of on the western end of this combined sewer area. Next slide, please. Combined sewer overflows. It's not just a way that the city of St. Louis or our region was developed and constructed. You can see on this map, it's all over the Northeast, the older community cities. Generally, this is the way it happened, back in the early 1900s. Next slide, please. And diving into more regionally to St. Louis, you can see all the permitted CSOs along the Mississippi River that handle mostly city of St. Louis. The area that I have circled there in that map basically is our project area here in University City. So it's not just University City, this project. There's several municipalities involved, and we'll see that as we go through a bigger map here. The next slide, please. So what this kind of cartoon or schematic shows is the current situation. So the combined sewer is the green sewer, which collects all of the stormwater, wastewater in this area. The red pipe underneath the local creek there is the sanitary sewer that conveys wastewater down to the Limay treatment plant. And you'll see that this diversion structure, as I labeled it, when there becomes too much water in that pipe and the sanitary sewer can't convey all that down to the Limay treatment plant, as the green pipe shows, it discharges out into the creek. That's what we're trying to improve upon here. Next slide. So the solution is a deep storage tunnel, a dewatering pump station down in the Shrewsbury area, and there's going to be several near surface sewers. So as you can imagine, this tunnel is long and linear. It's a couple 100 feet underground. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But all of these combined sewer overflow locations that are permitted are all up and down Upper River to Pear. So the near surface sewers, what they're going to do is they're going to get all of that water, wastewater to the tunnel itself. So these improvements directly benefit water quality, Upper River to Pear tributaries such as Black Creek, Deer Creek, Hampton, Claytonia Creeks, as you keep heading south down towards Shrewsbury. Just a note there that there's multiple municipalities involved, which you'll see on the next slide, I believe. Okay, so alignment considerations. I was thinking the map was here already. The alignment considerations. So when we laid the tunnel out, we're trying to take advantage of as much public right of way as possible. So again, the tunnel is 170, 200 feet deep, depending upon where you are along the corridor. Focused underneath public right of ways, minimize how many easements we need, how many potential impacted parcels, private residents we have. And really what we're focused on as far as the tunnel alignment goes is it's centrally located to the largest combined sewer overflows. So, there's some within University City you'll see on the map that are larger than others. They contribute more to the problem than others. And so we really wanted to focus our tunnel alignment on that. So it's kind of a combination of minimizing disturbance to private residents, staying under right of way, but also focusing on getting the biggest CSOs tied to the system. So next slide, please. So the project map, you guys should have a handout of that in front of you. We printed some larger ones off just to make that easier to see. But you can see the main tunnel alignment, the orange line, the thick orange line, starts down by Interstate 44 in the city of St. Louis. That's where our dewatering pump station will be. It heads up north, eventually picking up underneath Big Bend Boulevard and heading due north into University City. Cuts over to Olive Boulevard, which is more public right away, and eventually heads up towards Heman Park or just west of Heman Park. So the black dots on that map signify our major tunnel shafts. So down at the downstream end, you have the dewatering pump station shaft. That's where the project would likely start. They head from a downstream end to an upstream end as they're constructing this. The dot there, the black dot at Big Bend and 64 is an intermediate shaft. And then the northernmost black circle there is the dewatering or the retrieval shaft, where they'll take the tunnel boring machine out of the ground when it's finished doing its job of excavating the earth or the rock. The other thing I guess I want to point out on the map is, we did classify the CSOs from a volume standpoint. So the big red ones are the largest ones. They contribute the most flow into river repair or upper river repair. The yellow ones, call those medium-sized or moderate. And then all the green ones that you see were kind of classified as lower volume type CSOs. So just trying to think anything else about this map. So you have the main tunnel alignment, which is about 6 miles that goes from south to north. The branches off of it that you see are connecting tunnels. Those are slightly smaller in diameter, but they're focused on picking up the rest of the CSOs in a most efficient manner. Again, those are going to be down at the tunnel elevation. They're 200 feet deep. So there's nothing at the surface for those that you would, the residents would see. You see all the different municipalities that we go through. Maplewood, Richmond Heights, Clayton, U City, touches Pagedale, Shrewsbury, and the city of St. Louis as well. Next slide, please. A few facts about the tunnel. So it's about 18-foot diameter on the inside. It'll be bigger once we bore it, and then there's a lining that goes inside of it. It's about 6 miles long from south to north, and it ranges anywhere from 90 feet to 240 feet, depending upon where you're on the corridor, because the corridor is not flat. It's going up and down at the ground surface. There's approximately 16 drop shafts. So you heard me say that part of the solution is near surface sewers. That gets the wastewater, the combined sewer wastewater over to the tunnel, and then it drops down in a shaft. There's about 16 of those along the corridor. Next slide, please. So the components in University City, how does this impact the city? Obviously, the tunnel is in the city, deep underground. The retrieval shaft is in U City because that is the northernmost largest CSO that the program's trying to improve upon. There's tunnel intakes. Again, that gets the water or the combined sewer wastewater into the tunnel. And then there are near surface sewers that we will be constructing to get all that tied together as a complete program. Next slide, please. So here's a proposed cartoon schematic that looks pretty similar to the old one or the previous one, the existing one that we showed. You'll see the tunnel down low, the retrieval shaft on the left-hand side of the exhibit. And what happens in the middle is the improvement at every intake location. So it's 16 points along the corridor. The middle part of this cartoon is the improvement of the program. So when combined sewage in the green during dry periods, it just goes down into the red sewer like before. It heads over to the Lime water or the wastewater treatment plant. During times of wet weather or where you have the combined sewer, the water or the stormwater and the wastewater, instead of it heading out to the local creek, you see that that's turned into a kind of a dash green line now. It'll head down into a drop shaft or an intake structure, and it'll go down into the tunnel. The tunnel will store this until the water or the wastewater treatment plant can process it. And then we're going to pump it up to the surface, and it'll go underneath the 84-inch foul water interceptors underneath river to pair down to the Lime water or the wastewater treatment plant. So 16 times along the alignment, that middle part of it is the improvement. Instead of it going out to the creek, it's going to head down into the tunnel for storage, and then MSD is going to treat it. So we're drastically going to improve the water quality of Upper River to Prayer with this solution. Next slide, please. A little bit of an enlarged view of University City, showing a few more details here. You'll notice a lot of the same stuff. The orange tunnel is there. The two connecting tunnels that branch off of it. So you have one connecting tunnel that heads off to the northeast, curves up towards the north at Page. And then you have another connecting tunnel from the retrieval shaft that heads over towards the Amherst north-south intersection. What we do show on this map that wasn't on the previous one are the proposed intakes in University City. So those are the light blue or cyan squares. They're not completely set yet. Engineering wise, they're located to what makes sense to minimize surface impacts, easements, stuff like that. It's just, they're tentative at the moment. You see the largest CSOs, the two red ones up on the left, and then the yellow ones are the medium-sized ones. Again, focused on our alignments being near those because they're the heaviest volume producers. Next slide, please. Tentative schedule for all this, Brad mentioned 2039. That's the last bullet point there, but we're actively in design. That's projected to go through 2027. So we're in pre-design is what we're calling this now. There'll be other deliverables over the next few years. Right-of-way negotiations right now are scheduled through 2029. The tunnel and near-surface sewer projects should begin construction somewhere around 2031. And per the consent decree, the entire program needs to be up and running, switch is flipped to the on position by 2039. Next slide, please. I'm just going to go through a few more current activities before Brad takes it back over. Geotechnical investigations. I want to thank the city for allowing us and giving us a couple of right of entry permits up by Heman Park. So what we're doing there is we're taking a lot of deep surface borings, somewhere on the 225, 250 feet deep. What we're trying to do is get a gauge on the type of rock that's below the surface. We want to be in a consistent stratum, which just from an engineering point of view, that's the best thing for the tunnel boring machine. That way you know what you're getting. Next slide, please. We can kind of see a profile of this. But this profile is kind of a profile of the rock stratum underneath the ground. All the vertical lines, the black lines on that map or that exhibit are borings we've previously taken starting back in 2017. So we've poked a lot of holes in the ground along the corridor to best understand the rock properties that the tunnel boring machine will have to get through. But again, the city has helped us out, so we thank you for that. We do have a few more coming up in fiscal year 25. Fiscal year 26, there may be a few stragglers just to pick up if we've missed something that's going to minimize risk. Next slide, please. And then the pre-design. That's the other real current activity that's ongoing. So mentioned that's just focused on getting the tunnel laid out, the alignment, the intake locations, getting some of that preliminary design done, such as sizes and flow rates and stuff like that. Next slide. I think this is where Brad might take back over. So thank you for your attention tonight.
I can tell everyone is now an expert on combined sewer tunnels. The gist of it is all those dots you've seen is a place where combined sewage overflows into the creeks and streams, and we need to mitigate those. We need to take care of those. So we've got the large big tunnel that's coming from the south, and then all the fingers that go off in the various areas. One thing that we have to get your input on, or we'd like your input on, is where this tunnel ends up. So he showed that picture of that large machine. That's the tunnel boring machine. It goes in the ground. It's kind of neat. It actually fractures the rock as it goes. It pushes against the sides and pushes forward. And most of the tunnel spoils will be taken out down in Shrewsbury, much farther south. But we have to have a place to take the machine out, and we call it the retrieval shaft. In this case, it serves dual purpose. We will take the machine out in pieces when we're done with the tunnel, and it also acts as a major intake. And we have two sites just to the west of Heman Park that we want to discuss. The first site on the screen there is the Purdue apartment site. It's just adjacent. The River de Pear runs just along the west side of that site. It's a series of small apartment buildings in that area. Again, the major purpose of this tunnel is to improve water quality. There's a major CSO that's just to the north there. So we have to pick a central location that works out that we can bring all these feeder sewers into that. In this case, the large tunnel are the two red lines that you see coming from the right of the page to the left. And then that circle would represent the shaft location. The other set of smaller red lines that go off to the left-hand side or the west of the page, that's an adit tunnel. It'd be a smaller machine. It will be being built nearly the same time as the larger tunnel. So because I can't see that far either, I'm going to cheat here. The site that we're showing there is 3.8 acres. That really is what we think we need for the construction, as well as, somewhat of a buffer to allow for the construction. This is heavy construction at this site, no doubt. And we're going to give you some examples of that here in a little bit. Next slide, please. A few pros and cons. Obviously, pros, it would take the apartment buildings out of the floodplain floodway. I would imagine those apartment buildings have flooding issues at times, seeing where they're located. This does shorten the schedule modestly. Is 6 months to a year, a shorter schedule than the other site we're going to show you. This does create an opportunity if the city would be interested in expanding Heman Park over to that area. It's the only piece of non-Heman Park up to River de Pear in that area. Purdue Avenue runs between the apartments in Heman Park right now. It minimizes the impacts on commercial properties, but the con, obviously, it relocates residents, and we're going to talk about that process here a little later in the presentation. This is our preferred site, mainly for engineering reasons. This sets up well to allow us to build the tunnel the most efficient way. Next slide, please. This is a rendering of what the site would look like after we would be completed. Just wanted to represent that smallish gray square would represent what we would require to maintain our facility long-term. The majority of the site that you see between River de Pear and Purdue Boulevard would be open for whatever use would be practical in that location, knowing that it's still going to have flooding concerns, obviously. Next slide, please. The second alternative that we wanted to share, option B, utilizes the U-Haul area that existing U-Haul facility, as well as a portion of the apartments. Again, this is a little bit larger, 4.6 acres. That is mainly to help us accommodate the sewers that have to come in that you can see on the exhibit there. Next slide, please. Pros and cons again, removes properties from the floodplain, floodway again. It does have good construction access right off of Olive. It again creates an opportunity to expand Heman Park a little bit less than the other one. The cons, it would impact the U-Haul business and the tax base associated with that. Resident relocations is lower, but we wanted to put a note there that the remaining residents would be next to a large construction site. So we acknowledge that. And it is a slightly longer schedule. Next slide, please. So this is, we've built, this was our second large tunnel that we've built with the program. This was, we called the Deer Creek Tunnel. It actually ran from down in Shrewsbury along Interstate 44 We have a pump station site. Most people probably don't know what it is. It looks like a big brick building that nobody lives in. It ran all the way up. This location here is now known as Anderson Park. This is just north of the Galleria. When we got there, the homes had been removed for flooding issues, and we utilized it for our tunnel shaft. This was the retrieval shaft, the lower left-hand corner of the site there. During heavy construction, they were using the whole site. It was a dog park before we went there, and it's a dog park now. Next slide, please. This shows a picture during construction, kind of, you can see the crane off to the left. The tunnel shaft actually is up off the left. The road was starting to go back in. But you can see it's heavy construction. There are residential homes that are around this site, and we really got very few complaints. The main part of the construction is encompassed obviously right at the park site there. Next slide. Thank you. This is what it looks like today. Part of the deal with Clayton to use it, we had to put it back as a dog park. I learned a lot about dog parks. You got to have little dog areas, medium dog areas, and big dog areas, and they can't cross over. So our tunnel shaft, you can see that kind of U-shaped white line on there. That's actually the top of a retaining wall. Our tunnel shaft is all on that side. This was shortly after our construction was done. The grass is filled in. It looks really good now. I see the road on there. You can't even see the road. The grass grows through the pavers that are there. So next slide. This is another one, just an example. This is Northeast Ohio Sewer District. This is another project that Jacobs was associated with. You can see the tunnel shaft site there during construction. Next slide, please. And then after construction, what it looks like, what they returned it back to a park-like setting. Next slide. So everyone's ready for their honorary sewer tunnel degree after this. But we presented this to you kind of quick. And I said we presented originally to the city manager and public works folks. We gathered up questions from that day, and we have answers to each of those. So we'll run through those, and then if you have additional questions. So why is the retrieval shaft in University City? We really got to go where the problems are. The problems are the issues that we have to deal with of those combined sewer overflows. And there's a lot of them here in University City area. We've got to get a major conduit up there. We've got to get it somewhere in the middle of these to adequately convey the flow there. That area that I was showing you, the two options, that's the place that we think is the most logical choice. We spent a lot of time looking at that. He showed all the borings, all the different things we've done. There's a considerable amount of upfront design before we pick that alignment. So a lot of work has gone into that. So that's why that's located in University City. What is the number of residents to be relocated? We don't know the number of residents in each of those units. So we showed units here. Option A is 25 units. Option B is 12 units, including the U-Haul facility. We'll add, we're there for a long amount of time. We're in the 6 to 8 year range when we're going to be there. So it's not only the tunnel going up, but it's the tunnels coming in. So that site would be used up for a while. What is the process does MSD use to relocate residents? We follow the Uniform Relocation Act. Federal Highway Transportation came up with the act. Any federally funded projects use that. We do it as practice. It's a good common sense practice to relocate residents and owners. There's benefits for the residents, renters, owners, and it's a defined process. We relocate a lot of residents throughout the years, not tons, but we're pretty proud of that. We hire a consultant that is an expert in that field. We learned long ago we're not experts in that field. We hire them and they manage that process for us. Next slide, please. Was the plan for storage in Heman Park? Was there a plan? Yes. I was back here in mid 2015 timeframe talking about a sanitary storage facility. At that time, I think we both said uncle about 2018 after a lot of meetings. And we entered into an agreement in October of 2018. We entered into that agreement shortly after an unrelated consent decree extension that we got. That allowed us some extra time to go back and look at different alternatives to that sanitary storage. At the time of the agreement, we identified three potential opportunities there. Sanitary storage in Heman Park, like we had been discussing. A comprehensive solution, which at that time we were pretty vague, I'll be honest, because we didn't know what it looked like at that time. Comprehensive solution to accommodate both the sanitary storage as well as this combined sewer storage that we're talking a lot about today. The other alternative was outside of Heman Park, and that's really where we're at today. We've brought the comprehensive solution, being that we would build the combined sewer tunnel, achieve both needs in one storage facility, and build it just outside of Heman Park. We think it really is the best solution. It took us a while to get there, and it limits the impact on Heman Park. There still are near surface sewers that would need to be built in Heman Park, but the impact of those is much less. Next slide, please. What are the water quality standards when the flow hits the creek? We assume you're talking about combined sewer flow hitting the creek. The entire EPA consent decree is all about improving water quality. That's what we're here to do. And this project will dramatically improve water quality. We don't set the water quality standards. That's the state of Missouri, MDNR. And the water quality standard is not going to change. We just know we're going to take a lot of the problems out of those streams. When will the public outreach start? So we're here today to update you on the project, talk about those two retrieval shaft locations. Ultimately, we want to get our plan for the entire project from all the way down at Maplewood, all the way up into University City, this entire thing by the end of the year. So we'd love if you've got input on those retrieval shafts. That does impact our schedule on how we're going to move forward. Detailed public outreach, we're going to do that like we do with a lot of projects. As the project goes on and becomes more developed, has more details brought to it, we'll schedule public meetings at that time. Some of these projects that you see, I call them near surface sewers. They're not tunnel projects. They're closer to the surface sewers. We're probably going to break those out, and we may start on those earlier to get those done, so we're not doing everything at the last minute. So as those plans come together, we typically, between our 60 and 90% design stage, we have those public meetings. And that's really to inform the public on how this might impact the different communities. And if we don't wait till that period, we don't have a lot of the details to flush it out. What happens to the land afterwards? I think we're very flexible in declaring property surplus that we don't need. I think one thing that we would insist on, that if it's in the floodplain, floodway, nothing gets built back there again. Other than that, we're pretty flexible on future uses for that ground. At that point, I'm going to open it up for questions. And I've got all these people here. They're just wanting to give answers.
Mr. Hales.
Thank you. I appreciate the depth of this presentation. I had several questions. The first deals with the two largest CSOs, one at Midland and one at North and South. I guess I'm a little confused. I'm very familiar with North and South because that's right at Amherst. I used to live there. And I do want to mention there's a woman who lives on the north side in the 7500 block at the last house. And her yard over the years has been completely gobbled up by that. So at that location, is she part of the buyout?
So one thing I failed to mention, Jeff kind of referred to it. Where these tunnels come out, where we have construction, we're going to be buying more homes. And those details are coming along.
Okay.
So if you got information like that, we'd love to do win-win. If we can get a home out of the floodplain, floodway area and help accommodate our project, that's where we're going to look first.
Okay, and then the other question I have about those two CSOs, because I'm familiar with the volume that has come out of north and south. Do you have any numbers on the volume that has spilled over? And if that then gets diverted into these tunnels, I mean, there is a lot of stormwater that's mixed with that coming out of north and south, and I saw Midland in 2022, so I assume that's the case as well.
Right. So we will take a lot of storm water because it's mixed with it, and that will go into our tunnel. I mentioned that there's two big projects. There's a even bigger project that's going to go all the way up River to Pear, underneath River to Pear. Jacobs is actually working on that. That will be started prior to this project, but will still be going on. It's a 10-year construction window. So that tunnel will ultimately, the tunnel we're talking about here tonight will have the opportunity to go a couple different directions to either to maximize the amount we can store when the storm event is done and our treatment plant can handle it. Then they're going to be treating that combined sewage. The requirements for treating that are easier than they are for direct straight sanitary. So we take that into account. But yeah, the overall component of the flow going down River to Pear compared to the amount coming out those CSOs, our CSOs are very small in comparison.
Okay, and my last question is if there were to be another flood similar to 2022 over land, regardless of the location of the tunnel shaft, once completed, would that flood water be able to go down that shaft?
No.
Does
We'll
it get
put in-
sealed?
We'll put in protections, yeah. There's two different, during construction, we'll have to put in protections that it doesn't flood us out during
Okay.
construction. And then afterwards, we'll also do that.
Okay,
Yes.
See, Mr. Clay.
I was next. Thank you, Mayor Crow. And thank you for the presentation. I will commend MSD in that they have, I think, been here in front of this body more in the last 18 months than I probably saw them in my first, certainly 4 years on the council. So I do appreciate the communication and the outreach. I think Councilmember Hales kind of addressed this or asked this question, but I'm going to ask it as well, just so I'm clear. My background is not in hydrology nor engineering. If this tunnel is keeping water out of the River de Pear, would that necessarily have the impact? And I know you stated this is not a flood mitigation strategy per se.
Right.
But would it have the side impact of keeping the River de Pear from getting overcharged and getting more water in it and having some of the negative effects we've seen?
Related to his question, very small. And I could tell
Okay.
you no. It's basically no.
Okay.
This isn't a flood control project, and the amount of, as big as this tunnel is and as much flow as it can handle, it's not going to handle what River de Pear has going down it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And to the point of this not being a conversation necessarily about flood mitigation, you're MSD, you're here, so I'm going to ask about something. The clean out of the tunnels that took place. Again, I'm not a hydrologist, not an engineer, nor am I a statistician that can explore the difference between causality and correlation. But it seems like we've had some significant rain events, not 2022 level. I don't know if that'll happen again in another 1,000 years. But we've had some significant rain events, and it seems like since the clean out, we've not had the deleterious flooding impact. Again, not an engineer, not a statistician. Seems like the clean out helped. Is that something that you are looking at? Is that something that we can get some commitment on maintaining, given it seemed to help. And if nothing else, psychologically, people are feeling better and feeling safer, which is not the absolute measure of effectiveness, clearly, but it kind of means something.
So this is where I turn around and look at my audience. I'm not the best person to answer that. That's not really, but
You need to come to the microphone, please. You're on.
So thank you. Good question. So we are still cleaning the tunnel. We are almost done. We have a little bit more of inspection work to go, and it'll probably take us till the end of October to complete that. As far as the cleaning, reducing the amount of flooding, I'm sure it makes folks feel better. I'm not really, I can't sit here and quantify that the cleaning that we did anything different than what's taken place already in the tunnel. Oh, yeah. So one of your questions was maintenance, regular maintenance of the tunnel, and we are going to set up a schedule to look at that. I'm not ready to commit to that yet because I want to make sure I get all the facts from the cleaning and inspection. It's probably going to start out with some routine inspection to see how quickly or to what extent debris may accumulate in the tunnel or not accumulate. And that will drive our overall long-term maintenance requirements there.
And I certainly appreciate that. And is there a way you can study whether or not the clean out has had the desired effect? I know you're still in the midst of it, so we can't, it's probably not appropriate to look at it right now, but is there a way to potentially quantify that? Because again, it sure as shooting seems like it helps.
I'll answer that with maybe. I think we need to finish doing what we've been doing over the past months with the cleaning and inspection of the tunnel, and then talk to our engineering experts that are that look at those kind of things and see what may be possibly be done to quantify things or put some sort of definition around that.
Mr. Berto, since you came to the mic, can you please give your name?
Oh, yes, Brett Berthold. I'm the Executive Director and CEO at MSD. Same address as Brad mentioned.
Thank you.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Keeman.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor and my fellow council members. There's a couple of things I'd like to dovetail with what my colleague, Mr. Hale, said. He asked about a home on the corner of Amherst and North and South, and he asked about a single home, and the reply came in the plural. Is it expected to impact several homes? That's part one. Part two is I'd like to point out that there is a cemetery within 100 yards of this. And our plans being taken to, I don't know, attend to this in some way, shape, or form.
we're not going to take the cemetery if that's your question. No. The plans are still coming together. By the end of the year, we're going to have something. So January, February timeframe, I would anticipate we could sit down with your public works staff is the way we normally would do this. We would go through our preliminary plans and identify properties that we think may need to be
But the
purchased.
expectation is properties, that you were using the plural correctly.
There will be multiple properties.
Multiple
Yes.
properties, okay.
Not necessarily for that location. I'm talking on the project in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that this plan is really comprehensive, and I commend you. I really do. The hard work that was being done on this.
Thank you.
It would help if we had some sense of what the aesthetics will be like in Heman Park upon completion of this. Well, I won't say any more than that because I think the aesthetics are important. Lastly, can you briefly say what would be done about the relocation of those folks? I know you referred to that act. I'm unfamiliar with that act. Could you give just a very brief
Sure.
sense of what would happen to those people? Because anyway, you think, please.
So two things, the aesthetics, what we've done on other projects is, and I think we referred to this in the prior agreement as well. We can form an aesthetics committee that is the people that live in that area. It might be your parks committee, to help give us input on what you want it to look like. I've seen a lot of different things. Some people really want it to look a certain way. Other people just want it to blend in and make it go away. I think we showed the minimum. We showed a row of trees around there. Obviously, there's a lot of details that can be worked through on that. In regards to the Uniform Relocation Act, we can share some brochures with you on what that is. You go out and type in Uniform Relocation Act, URA, it'll probably find it as well. It's designated. They have rules that dictate how the benefits are available to the residents, to the owners, all the way through. But we can share some information with Gregory.
Thank you for this great presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good presentation. I'm just going to ask for some clarification.
Sure.
Let you kind of know, I chair a local committee here, our Stormwater Commission, which is made up of guys that have got brains that spill over all of this. So kind of to answer before, I think the answer from my committee would be that clean out. We have data to show that kind of like a short-term data is if we get more than 1.5 inches of rain in a half an hour, we have flooding problems. And we've had that, and we haven't had flooding problems. And I've been out on the famous Pennsylvania Bridge in the downpour watching that water come up. So I think we've had a positive effect that we can document. My committee has been in conjunction with our fire department putting instrumentation out to monitor the flow of River de Pere. And we're adding more equipment to that so we can also further document that in the future. Now, to your plan here, make this like I'm a fourth grader here. So you're saying, can I restate, you're taking our existing combined water, nothing to do with River de Pere. We're putting it in this orange tunnel. This orange tunnel is deeper than our current sewers.
That's correct.
That's going to be like a storage unit. And then at a later date, that gets pumped back up and managed.
You're spot on.
All right.
Yeah. The only thing I'll qualify is we're going to capture where the sewers can't handle it now and it overflows into the creek.
Correct.
We're going to take that to the tunnel.
All right.
Yeah. You're
Final
right
question.
there.
We have also heard about the Army Corps' reservoir that's going to be up in Overland that we just got federal money committed to. And that's going to be a retention much in the same way. Is that going to get tied in with this, or is that going to get tied in with our River de Pere?
It's going to be part of the River de Pere. It has
Right.
nothing to do with our.
So you guys have not been approached on any of that, right? All right.
I'm sorry. Correct. It's stormwater. Yeah. I'm sure there's someone at MSD that may be more aware of it. I am not. Yes, that's correct.
Just thank you. That I just want to get that out there. Thank you.
Sure.
Briefly, Mr. Rose.
Mayor Crowe, Councilmember Fuller, we are continuing to work with the Army Corps of Engineer on the detention basin project. I'll certainly be recommending the use of our OMCI funding that is captured by MSD and then forwarded on to University City for various projects. But they are separate projects. But the reason that the detention basin project was advanced was so that it won't eliminate, but it will begin to minimize the flooding that occurs in those most frequently flooded areas.
That's good to hear. I didn't know they got funding set aside for that. So great.
Mr. Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Brad, thank you for the presentation. But just a quick question. with the tunnel shaft option A and B, I'm just kind of curious. I see that you have option A as your preferred option. But why then would you offer option B, and tell me what the reasoning is behind that?
We didn't want to seem callous, and that we've decided, we don't know all the things, the inner workings of University City. You may have come in here and said, hey, we've got information, U-Haul's moving out. We don't know that. You may have information that says, we've identified those apartments for redevelopment. We don't know that. So we really want your input. If we keep our blinders on, we don't find out information like that.
Okay, so just in a matter of, we want to keep commercial property. So in this case,
I haven't heard that. Everybody
Right,
looked
right.
at me
No.
like, what's going on now? I don't know.
no, I'm not saying that anything's going on.
Okay.
And the last question I have about that is that when would, depending on, so it's a matter of, when will we decide on option A or B?
We're not really here asking you to make a decision.
No, that's okay.
This is our project.
Sure.
We're gonna carry the weight on it. We understand that. We really want your input. If there's something we're not taking into account, we want to know that. But if you're asking when would we reach out to the property owners?
Sure.
We'd like that input by within a month from now, because
Okay.
we want to get our plan put together. And once we
Right.
got that plan, then we would reach out to the property owners.
Okay.
I did reach out to the two property owners because I always feel uncomfortable of them finding this out in the media or some other way. So I told them that this meeting was going on tonight, and we are going to share the presentation with them tomorrow.
Mr. Rose.
Mayor Crowe, Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson, the intention of the meeting was to get a sense of the council's overall feeling regarding what option best fit for University City. And so there has been a desire to retain, I believe, commercial property in University City. Our efforts to diversify the impact on our actual budget, as well as the desire to try and remove as much residential property, multifamily and single-family residential property out of the floodplain as possible. And so it would be my intention to encourage MSD to look closely at option B, unless I hear something different from the council tonight.
Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, Mayor. And
I'm sorry, council A, option A, which is the residential. I just want to clarify.
I was a little
Thought there was a
taken
little, yeah, I
aback.
thought there was a little there, but that was some soft shoe going on there.
Eh,
Mr. McMahon.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll try to be quick because I know we're kind of running to the end of the hour here that we had. The term I think you used was permitted combined sewer overflows. Is there something other than a permitted combined sewer overflow?
By our consent decree, they are permitted to stay. We have to dramatically reduce how much is coming out of those.
Right. So they're permitted to stay.
Correct.
And so at the present time, they would be designed and allowed to stay. So they're working in the way they're designed in a sense so that they do overflow into the rivers and creeks, but that's what you're trying to fix.
Correct.
So in essence, you were permitted to use those dots, 32 of them in U City, as part of the sewer system, and it did flow into River de Pere, and then use that until it can be fixed.
Correct.
Okay. So my question on permitted, are there other types of overflows that exist in U City that aren't of the permitted type?
So there's sanitary sewer overflows,
Okay,
and those are going. They got to go.
they got to go.
And
So-
we've
There-
done projects in the past, and I think we've eliminated just about all of them in the
And-
University City.
Of the combined sewer overflows that you're directing with this project, of the 32 in U City, are they all connected to the tunnel?
Yes, they'll all be connected to the
Okay.
tunnel. Yes.
So because I've heard the word mitigate, so would it be fair to say then, once the project's done and they're connected, those permitted combined sewer overflows are not just mitigated, they're eliminated?
I can't say they're eliminated. We're going to dramatically reduce them, and we're still going to leave those there in the case of a very big storm.
Something we can't
predict with the weather and the
Correct.
world we live in today. Okay, thank you.
If I could, just a couple of questions. First, on behalf, I think for Mr. Smotherson and myself, we were here in 2015 when the last meeting came. That was probably not as productive as this one has been. So I'd like to say to all of you, thank you very much. We appreciate that a great deal. And on the when you talk about units, I'm assuming option A and option B, you say units, and in my jargon, units are apartments. They're not homes, or they are homes.
I think those units look like duplex homes.
Okay,
to me.
I'll go with duplex, but they're, to the best of my knowledge, when you're using this phrase, you're not talking about any single family homes.
Correct. No, we are not. There will be probably single family homes separate from the retrieval
Absolutely.
shaft. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think on the single family homes issue, I think to all of my colleagues, I think one of the things we need to probably sit back on is understand that some of the homeowners will want to be bought out and some may not. So this is not a rush to judgment one way or the other. We've got an awful lot of folks that have been through an awful lot, and they may just as soon be relocated. We've got other folks who'd say, this is my home and I want to stay. So we recognize that there's a whole swing in there. And I actually think that Mr. Tiemann may have been talking apart the part of the cemetery that's completely vacant, because there's a good chunk in there in one part of that, but that's for another day.
We will have a future meeting with staff, just like we
Yeah.
did on the
Yeah.
retrieval
Yeah.
shaft, to come back and say, here's the area we're looking at. You tell us what you know about
Yeah.
that area.
And so I guess what I'd say on behalf of all my colleagues, we would like to thank all of you for coming this evening. We appreciate you taking the time. We appreciate the depth of the proposal. Mr. Smotherson.
Yes, sir. Just a quick question in reference to Mr. Rose. So in reference to option A or B, do you want that from us tonight now, or is that at a future time frame?
Mayor Crowe, Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson. No, it was just to get a sense of, if possible, what's the direction that they should be going. And I think that they should, by at this point, understand what seems to be the consensus of the mayor and council, which is a preference to gravitate towards moving properties out of the floodplain and not commercial properties.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. We will, does anyone of my colleagues, if we don't need to take a break, we'll probably just take about a
And-
1 or
and-
2 minute break to allow you guys to head out.
Great. Thanks for your staff advancing the slides too.
Folks, we will start our meeting